is the Reverend Father Robert coming to you from the center in North Muskegon, Michigan. I'd like to comment on the most horrific passage of the bill in Mississippi that, by their own admission of some of their legislators, was the most discriminatory bill that's ever been passed in that state's history. In restoring someone's right of religious freedom, that was never a question. We all know that we have religious freedom in this country. We all know that we can worship any way we want, and we can have any vision of a God or lack of a God that we want. That was never the issue. So to say that a group of people can say to themselves, well, I don't like someone's lifestyle, or I believe marriage should only be between a man and a woman, and that's your right to have that belief. That no one's questioning that at all. But, if we look at this thing realistically, if you were a gay couple, would you actually seek out the most hateful and detrimental church that you could find and ask them to marry you? Of course not. Of course not. You're going to look for the most accepting church or the most accepting minister to perform that service for you. And then when they get into the aspect of transgender people and restrooms, that's a complicated issue. But what the state of Mississippi and what other states in the South are forgetting is that transgender people have common sense. They know what restroom that they're going to use. They know what restroom that they're going to, as they present themselves, which one they're going to use. This doesn't need to be such a huge issue. And by passing this law and putting people's lives in danger, shame on you, Mississippi. Shame on you for your discrimination under the guise of religion. And what religion are we talking about? Are we talking about anybody's religion? So let's say that I decide that as a priest, I don't like A, B, C, and D. So does that mean that I can discriminate against them while at the same time calling myself a Christian? Of course not. If you're going to call yourself a Christian, you are bound by God's law to respect people, to love one another, to serve the poor, to do everything in your power to help people achieve what God has sent them to achieve. There's no discrimination that we can look at and claim a religious basis for. That's ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. And nobody's asking any church to change their stand. No one is asking any church to accept people that they don't want to accept. Knock yourself out. Do whatever you want. But when you start taking your religious beliefs and endangering the lives of other people, then I think you need to step back and actually look at what you're doing. I just read an article this morning where the author is talking about transgenders, and he puts it in a quotation mark, like transgender people aren't real people. And it's interesting that the example he uses is only like men, putting on a wig and a skirt and dressing up as women. That is such a horrible insult to the transgender community. And I will always stand by the transgender community. Because I believe, number one, that they are being and working at being their authentic selves, their true selves that God has created them to be. So, and my other point is, I would guess that in Mississippi, the legislature, and in other southern states, you don't have a clue to what transgender people are about. How many transgender people have you ever sat down with and talked about their experiences, talked about their life, got to know them for who they are? We have a transgender group that meets here at the center every Tuesday at 6:30. Talk about a marvelous group of people, people who are working very hard to be their authentic selves. And they face discrimination, and they face isolation from their family and friends. And some of these beautiful people have just a terrible, terrible time trying to be who they are. And for a government to intervene and use the word religion, whatever happened to the separation of church and state? I am all for the separation of church and state. Churches actually could end up being more powerful and effective without government regulations. And the government can be much more effective if we stick to the Constitution and we grant everyone their rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So Mississippi and the other states that are following and have already enacted anti-LGBT legislation and specifically targeting the transgender community, shame on you. Absolutely shame on you. And I hope that when companies start pulling out and when the federal government starts taking funds from you because you're violating Title IX and all of the other things that are happening, I hope that you reconsider. I hope that you will sit down with people that you are so afraid of, that you think are going to have such a disastrous impact on your community. And talk to people, and love people, and support them in their journey. Because if you are going to use the term Christian, you have no option except to follow Jesus' command to love one another. Have a blessed day.